All right, team. Welcome back to today's show. A little different today. We want to just do a little recap of a trip we did. For a lot of folks that may not know, we do travel around this country, talking to owners, communities, different towns, about just what they got going on, always learning from them, and always kind of making sure that we stay up to date with just kind of the fabric of this country. And so this recent trip took us to Mexico, Missouri. Yeah, it's a place called Mexico, but it's in Missouri. Great town. And the reason I wanted to share a little bit about our recap there is because it was quite an experience. We landed there, I think, with an expectation of one thing, and it ended up being something totally different, much better. And I'll explain what I mean. But my hope is that when you listen to today's episode and listen to some of the recap of our trip there, it really kind of solidifies this idea of why local ownership, why communities, why strong towns really matter. I think we hear us say that a lot here at American Operator. Hey, keep it local. There's strength in being independent. There's, the American dream. But I wonder sometimes if that really conveys what we actually mean and why we actually mean it. It's not just some catchphrase that we like to talk about. It's real. We see it every day in America. And my hope is that after today's convo, you'll really get even a further understanding and maybe even a boost to kind of take some of this stuff to your own community and your own homes. And so a little background on Mexico, Missouri. This actually came up because it was a town that we'd learned about that had big corporations come through, and through some mishaps, some negligence potentially, and some other just things that didn't go well, their entire hospital system evaporated. From literally one day to the next, they had operating hospitals, and then after that, they didn't, which is pretty alarming if you think about your own situation. Imagine getting care, like the closest place to get care is like an hour away, especially like an emergency room care. Like that's pretty intense and something that that rural America isn't new to. But you typically have hub points pretty nearby. And in this case, that entire system for 12,000 folks just went away. And if you look at the larger county, like 25,000 folks. And so we went down there to learn just kind of what the impact was and learn a little bit more about how the town is doing. But when we landed, we had this idea that it was like, oh, it was going to look run down. It was going to be a town that was barely making it. We didn't even know if anybody was still around. Like if your local hospital left and the businesses that operated with the hospital left, you would think that the town would be a ghost town. And so we landed there and we learned that it was totally different. It was thriving. It was buzzing. People were smiling. They have a town square there that was full. As a matter of fact, it was on MLK, so they had like a big event. And it wasn't just like 2 or 3 people. I mean, seemed like the whole town was in that courthouse. Was breaking our brains because it's not what we expected to see. And so it prompted a new question. Why is this town thriving? How is this town thriving? Their hospitals aren't back yet. So what changed? And the one thing I'm reminded of small town America, it's some of the best people. And what I would say, it's like America on concentrate. Like you see the best of our country in these small towns because it's so neighborly. They take care of each other. They're welcoming, and immediately made us feel like home, made us feel like family. So much so that we were getting like personal tours around the town with folks that were clearly busy with running their shops or running their business or running the Chamber of Commerce. Yet they made time for us, not only as outsiders to show them their town, but also as folks, I think, who recognized that we all had a kindred spirit about each other and we were celebrating the fact that this town was thriving. And so as I had time to reflect, we got some content, we got some conversations and things coming out later. And we were able to talk to a lot of folks, from the president and the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce all the way to the mayor for a little bit of time, and then local owners. Got to talk to quite a bit of folks. So we'll have more information and more follow-up from this. But all I want to do is just kind of recap what I learned from that couple days spent there in Mexico, Missouri, and maybe a little insight into why this town not only continues to thrive, but how I think their recipe is something that's probably happened across America, We just don't always get to see it because it's those humble stories that don't make it in the news. All right, y'all, real quick. Thanks again for tuning in. This show wouldn't be anything without you all spreading the word out and helping more Americans pursue their American dream. With that, we need your help. If you're tuning in via Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your podcast, please leave us a rating. Please leave us a review. We read all of them, and it helps us out immensely. If you tune in via YouTube, please like and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on a future episode, and it also allows us to get the word out to more folks who could use these words being shared here and helping them with their business or whatever they have going on in their lives. Finally, if you're interested in what we do here, check out AmericanOperator.com. A lot more information there, and we want to hear from you. So send us a question, something we potentially can ask on the show, or at the very least, kind of provide some feedback. We want to engage with you. You're important to us, and we really appreciate all you do. Thanks again. One of the things that, as I kind of had time to reflect, that town wasn't foreign to them to have tough times. You know, they're farmers. They're used to Mother Nature playing a factor in how they make a living. They've had a big brick plant there for quite some time that also went away some decades ago. They've had major hardship in that town. And so tough times wasn't something they were used to. Tough times was something they were used to, but they were very comfortable with prevailing or understanding how to fight through it. And that spirit was alive and well. You could tell that they were very interested in moving forward. You know, talking to the president of the Chamber of Commerce there and local business owner, you know, he mentioned, hey, look, this stuff is hard, and there's no doubt that we got to accept the facts of the hospital system being out here and all these other things. But we also have to keep our eyes pointed on the horizon. We got to get our families through this. If we soak in it, we're not going to be able to move forward. And I thought it was an incredible mentality. You don't even see that in big cities sometimes. You know, it's really easy to get caught up in what's not working instead of getting caught up in what could be working and how do you go get there. So I think one of the observations that I made was that this town was used to tough times, and because of that muscle memory, it wasn't foreign for them to go fight and to go fight through it. And I think that's something we can all pull from, you know, as we're going through our business, our lives, our family. There's often magic in those tough times if you let it happen. And this is clearly what was happening in Mexico, Missouri. The other thing was awesome about this, and I think goes right to the core of what we talk about here at American Operator all the time, is owners stepped up. You see, when that hospital system, and all kinds of owners, but I'm going to give a specific anecdote here. When the hospital system evaporated, went out of biz, it didn't mean that folks stopped being sick, ill, having emergencies. All that stuff still happens in a town. And instead of the local doctors that were working at that hospital running away and going to finding a job in another city or whatever, which would have been understandable, right? They got to pay their bills. Instead, a lot of them stuck around. And not only did they stick around, but they were treating people for free. And when you ask them why, it was almost like I could tell they looked at me kind of sideways, like, what do you mean why? This is my town. These are my people. These are my neighbors. My kids go to school with them. Why wouldn't I take care of them? And again, I think going back to what rural America is kind of used to, they have to take care of each other because no one is coming to save them. And so the idea that they would stay there, help their neighbor, and instead of abandoning the town, it would actually provoke a new idea, potentially a new way to do healthcare. In one example, one of the docs out there decided that, you know what, I'm going to create my own private practice, primary care, and what I'm going to do is charge a very affordable fee to have people in this town come see me and a couple of my teammates anytime they need, because it's what's right. I don't need to make, I think in his specific words were like, look, I don't need to make all the money in the world off these folks. I need to make enough to make a living. I need to be able to take care of these people. And more importantly, I need to be able to look them in the eye when I see them at church, at the grocery store, at school, at the town square, and know that we're taking care of each other. And I can look at myself and walk out the door every single day with my head held up high. It's pretty remarkable. And so this wasn't just the doc stepping in and these doctors stepping in. These were owners stepping in, pitching in with supplies, you know, helping their neighbor get from A to B when something didn't work out. That town was so interconnected in a way that I haven't seen in a while. And I think it reminds me of the power of stepping in and stepping into the arena and deciding that there's no one coming. Who's going to help? Well, look at the mirror. And I think everybody in that town took that approach, which was really remarkable about seeing how ownership and about how folks that are running local businesses can really come to the rescue in really dire times. And so I think it just circles back to the mission we talk about here quite a bit. You know, there's no doubt that ownership gives you a lot of personal gratification and agency and control and you get to steer the ship to your own life. But it also gives you the opportunity to help others in a way that would not necessarily be possible. You know, they waited for some government agency to come in and help out with whatever, healthcare and those things. There's probably a lot of red tape. There's probably a lot of time. There's probably a lot of things they had to go through. But in this case, it happened like that because it was local owners stepping in, local doctors stepping in and saying, this is what needs to happen. Let's just make it happen. And overnight, they had something different. They had something that mattered to the people that lived in that town. Last thing, just last observation here, and there's a lot. I could probably talk to y'all for a few hours on this thing, but I think last thing that, as I was flying back from the Midwest, from Missouri there, I thought to myself, something that's always been true, I think, in my own life, in my own upbringing, but also something that I got to see in this town in Missouri called Mexico, is that you're not a result of your circumstances, you're a result of your actions. And seeing that town, I think anybody would have seen it and go, of course, they didn't make it. And you know what? That's okay. It's acceptable. But I think what was neat is that these folks, they not only refused it, but there was something about their swagger. It just didn't even occur to them that they needed to take a knee and take a break. To them, it was yeah, this is what happens, right? We're farmers. We're used to things not always going our way. But we got no choice. This is who we are today, yesterday, tomorrow. We got to figure out a way to fight through it, and we got to figure out a way to keep our wits. And so they just got in action, just started doing the work. And because of that work, you can see a town that's thriving. It's so exciting to be there. I mean, you look around and see the bones of it, and you see how excited the town is. And I think that if you fast forward 5 years from now, it'll be a place that will be much more on the map, and I think a lot more Americans will want to move to, because I think they're doing all the right things. And I think the most important right thing is they have the right mindset. That is, their actions that create the results that they need for themselves and their families and their neighbors. And that it isn't, oh, my circumstance ain't great, so therefore I'm just going to count that as what life is going to be. So I learned a lot about this trip here. I learned a lot about the folks from Mexico, Missouri. And my hope is that as you tune in today, you'll just kind of really, along with me, just kind of spend some time reflecting on maybe where are there some things as an owner, maybe if you're tuning in, or just a fan of the American dream, where are some things that you could be stepping more into action, raising your hand instead of waiting for somebody else to show up to the fight, and also just really thinking about just kind of what the right thing to do is, regardless of the circumstance. Is it taking care of your neighbor? Don't overthink it. Just do it. Is it you being the one that has to kind of step in and take over the family business because it's great, but dad's sick? I don't know what the circumstance is, right? But whatever it might be, there's probably something calling in your life. And I think if you decide to just step into it like these folks did in Mexico, Missouri, I think you'll find a lot of great stuff at the end of that, or along that path. And I think you won't regret it. That's the biggest thing. I noticed these people didn't stand by and go, hey, it's easy. They all just say it's worth it. And I think the path that's worthy of pursuing is always worth doing, but doesn't mean that's easy. That's all I got for y'all today. We'll have some content coming out again and some things coming about our trip to Mexico that's a little bit more in depth, but hope this kind of gives you a little boost here as you tune in. And as always, we appreciate every single week y'all tuning into the show and kind of helping us spread the word there about what we're doing here on American Operator and what the great folks of this country are doing to keep the American dream alive. All right, y'all. Till next time. Thanks for tuning in to the American Operator Podcast, where we celebrate the backbone of America, small business owners and operators like you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, Be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss out on more of these stories and insights from people who keep our community strong. Until next time, keep building, keep operating, and keep America moving forward.